Welcome to the show, everybody. Micah with CoronavirusDiaries, and today I'm fortunate enough to reconnect with Luke Richmond, an Australian adventurer and author currently living in Tasmania. Luke, how you doing?
Really good, mate. Really good. How are you?
I'm doing outstanding, man. So we're on other sides of the world right now. It's early Saturday for you, and it's going into Friday evening for me. How's your weekend starting off?
Mate, this weekend, you've timed it well. I've got my second book that just got released yesterday. So yesterday, today, tomorrow, and probably the next day, I'm doing all the pre-sales. So just getting all those books signed and shipped off to people that ordered early, mate. So it's the fun stuff this weekend.
I am looking forward to my copy, Vodka and Sandstorms, and I was hoping we could jump into this a little bit. Maybe don't go too far into what the entire book is about. Leave that for the people that are interested in reading it. Don't want to give any spoiler alerts, but more about how you approached it from the conceptualization of, I want to write this book to the actual implementation of creating chapters and creating this arch and then the finalization. So if you're
Yeah.
up for it, I'd be just interested to hear, like, how did it start? Like, where did it come from? I mean, obviously you've written other books, but this one in
Yeah. So
particular.
this is my second book, but different for the first one. So it's all based on my adventure life. So it's every chapter's pretty much an expedition somewhere around the world, whether it's mountain climbing or kayaking, or there's a couple of ocean rows in there, base jumping, all sorts of stuff. But my first book, I went down that traditional route. So I wrote the manuscript and then pitched it out to all the publishers in Australia and New Zealand, and was lucky enough to get picked up. And then they really run with the ball from there. They do all the editing, all the printing, all the distribution, and you just sort of sit back and wait
Sure.
for the money to roll in. Is the big dream, right?
Yeah, right.
And all the stuff that I learned through that process, and I learned a hell of a lot, I put into my second book, but I also went out on my own for this second one. So I'm just an independent author now. I'm not using a big publisher, just self-publishing and using all the distribution channels that we can. That way, it's a hell of a lot more work. So you do a lot more work during the entire process of editing, printing, getting all the internal and external designs right, and then distribution. But it just means you can make a bit more money on the back end. So I've learned a whole new process with the second book. So it's good. I've got a bit of insight into both worlds now.
Sure. So when you went through that first process of getting a publisher, I've heard that can be one of the biggest hurdles for people that are trying to go that route, is to actually find somebody to buy into it and to actually print, because you have it digitized as well as print, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's definitely the hardest part, is trying to find a publisher in the beginning. I know it's much more difficult for over where you are in America. You need agents, I think, over there, and then the agents go on your behalf to the publishers, and that just adds another layer of income that you've lost in the
The
whole
middleman.
process.
Yeah.
The middleman, yeah. So in Australia, we don't need agents, but you do have to do all that work yourself and try and reach out to these editors and publishers. And then, I must have had 30 rejections before I had one that said, yeah, we'll give you a go and we'll have a look at it,
Sure.
But, I'm not a massive, what do you say, a best-selling author down under, but there's enough to make a living, so I can survive on book sales. But I'm not selling, 10,000 copies a week like some of the big American authors out there. But
Not yet. Not yet.
Not yet. But it's absolutely right. The digital stuff, so the ebooks, Kindle. I've got the audiobook for the first one done, currently doing the second one. So you're trying to use as much as I can. And that's where, big players like Amazon that have come into the market and really dominating that space, it's making it a lot easier for people like me, where I can have paperback distribution in America now through their print-on-demand systems and
Sure. Wow.
all that stuff. We used to have to go to a big publisher to get that sort of stuff,
Yeah. So you went through that initial process. Would you mind sharing maybe a reason, or like a couple aspects of that traditional route that you went, that just it was raising red flags or something, and you said, you know what, I'm going to tackle this myself for the next time? What was it
Yeah.
that made you say, you know what, I'm not? It may be convenience, it may be convenient, but it's not worth it.
Well, it was all what came out in hindsight. So when you're first signing up, they tell you all of these different things, percentages, royalties, and all this type of stuff. But at the end of the day, all these, thousands that sell in a store here in Australia, you might get $1.50 out of a $30 book here in Australia. So that's the end chain of how it works.
Wow.
I think it's very similar in America and Canada and places like that. But so that whole thing, when you finally see how it all runs, and at the end of the day, this is what you get. It's not a lot. And if I'd stayed in that world, I wouldn't be able to make a living from it. I was very lucky that I do a lot of seminars around Australia and overseas, where I present on all my adventures and stuff, and I sell a lot of books there, so I can make a lot of income doing that. But then now with the second one, where I can handle distribution, everything all myself, you might make at least 50% of your retail value. So you might make $15
Nice.
as opposed to $1.50. Yeah. So the maths, it's a no-brainer. You have to sort of go
10x.
that. Yeah, but like everything, mate, as you know, when you don't know about what the process is, you're going to pay for that education in some way, whether it's through a shitty deal and you see how it panned out. Well, I've just paid for my education that way, and I'll put it to good use in the next one.
It's a good way to think about it. That's tail end of last year, I really started getting into some stocks and crypto trade, like doing some stuff with trading, and just wanted to learn. I didn't really know much beyond like a Roth IRA or some, retirement funds types of stuff in corporate. But I finally went the route of like, I'm going to make the trades myself. I'm going to do the research myself, and I'm going to take the losses myself. Because I had tried when I was a bit younger to have somebody managing an account, and it was the financial collapse of 2008 started. Yeah, it was bad. Cut me out at my knees, and I backed out and took some big losses from pulling all my money out because I was kind of like locked in. Fast forward though, and going into it recently, I said, you know what? I paid money for college. I got an education through paying that money to take that lesson or to take the lessons. And that's how I approached it this time. Was I set aside a certain amount of money, and I just said, you know what, I'm probably going to lose this, but I'm going to learn something about the process and about what to look for and the things that people, they might be able to teach you, but what is it? What's the saying about learning it yourself as opposed to having someone tell you, So, yeah.
And now you've got those skills forever. So when you do go through that process, and you'll lose money and it'll be an absolute ball ache. But once you get a handle on it, then you've got that for your trading for the rest of your life and for my next 5, 6 books, whatever, and that's when you can make that goodwill, that income back. Sure.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about the transition from publisher to self-publish. Curious about the actual process of putting it into words, like whatever it is, right? So did you have like this process? I'm going to write 300 words a day. I'm going to do that for 2 months, and then I'm going to go back and I'll fine tooth comb it. Like, did you have an idea of chapters, or how did you go into the physical writing of this book and step through it?
I guess now when I go on a climbing trip or a big expedition, I know that at the back end of it, whether it's a success or not, the expedition, I will be writing about it in some way. So I do keep detailed journals, which I've done my whole life anyway, but also keep a little voice recorder. So as I'm climbing up or as I'm doing a certain activity, you can take down those real, minute details that help build that scene. So then when I do get back in front of the computer, months later, I've got those voice recordings, I've got the journal, and I'll lay out a bit of a dot points of all of those little ideas and all the detail that I've taken down. And then I'll just set myself a goal of every single day I'll get up, I'll grab my coffee, and the first thing I'll do is sit down and I'll try and get out just at least a decent couple of lines or one paragraph. That's all I set to do. And as long as I do that every single day, I'll have that chapter done in probably a month or so. And by the end of that 6, 9 months or a year, or whenever I've stacked up enough adventures, there'll be another manuscript there. And some days it blows out to a few pages. You get on a good roll and you're really telling it well. And other days you might get down a couple of lines and it's just not working and you walk away. But I try and do that every single day when I'm in writing mode, for sure.
Nice. How long were you working on the actual writing or that aspect of it for Vodka and Sandstorms?
This one came together a lot quicker than my first. So my first was based over sort of my upbringing, my military service, and then all the adventures over looks like a 5 to 10 year span. The second one is pretty much like 4 year span of adventures, back-to-back expeditions that I've been on. And that came together really well. I wrote that whole manuscript within 9 months, but then it does take at least 6 months. You can't really push it any quicker than that if you want to work with quality people. So I go out and I hire a really good editor, like someone that's worked for the big publishers before. Then you'll hire a line editor, you'll hire your internal designer who'll do your cover design and your ebook. And when you're working with these people, like that does take time. So that'll be another 6 months process. Then when you're working with your printers and distributors, they'll need time to get all that set up and then ship it to you. So there's another 2-3 months there. So it's a process between writing and delivering it to the market. Could be 2 years.
It's a lot of patience.
Yeah, for sure.
Seems like a trait that you've had to figure out throughout all of your adventures is a little bit of that.
Absolutely. And I think with me, I don't want to go back to a normal job. So I don't want to go back coal mining. I'm not going back to the military. I just want to keep having adventures. And if that means I've just got to write stories, tell stories for a living, and go through this whole process and learn along the way, well, that's a great life to have.
Yeah, I would say so. With the adventures that you went on for this one, I'm curious. So you had an idea like for going on a certain type of adventure, expedition, if you will. You go and do it. You get back from it. You're kind of processing it. You're putting down some bullet points, and then you're like, it's time for another one. Or like now I'm going to go on this other one. And when do you know it's been enough to put the information together and that is enough for the book that you want? Like, why not off of just one adventure? Why stack multiple adventures?
I think that just comes down to what I started reading in my youth. I was reading a lot of Jack London books, like adventure stories.
Okay.
And he had a particular style that I've taken on board as well, which is more of a short story style. So I'll have a 57-day expedition of crossing the Gobi Desert in Mongolia, dragging a cart.
Yeah.
And that's wedged into, pretty much 2 chapters of a book, because I like to keep it fast paced. I like to just deliver it and not get bogged down in too much of something that could be considered mundane to the reader. And that's the way Jack London wrote his stuff as well. He delivers these hard-hitting, good opening, good closing, full of detail, short stories. And that's, I guess, where I picked up my style and carried on from there. And I'll just so when it comes to writing a book, I'll have my expeditions all planned. So I had a bunch planned before all this COVID-19 stuff came along, but we'll just slide the whole year and start again next year, I think. But I'll have them backed up. So I might not get to writing the chapter on one expedition because I'm already planning and going on the second one. But then there'll be a break somewhere in my year that I'll usually go on the speaking circuit and start to make some money again because I've spent it all on adventure. Yeah. And that's when I'll do my writing process. And, depending on how many adventures stack up and whether I can get in 110,000 words is sort of the sweet spot for me in books. Wow. That's what I'll deliver.
Outstanding. How did you come to that 110,000? Because I thought what was it? 70,000 is kind of that. It's a book now, or that's what my understanding is.
And I know, like, if you're trying to mass produce like novels, you're a bit of that novelist sort of market where you're churning out this stuff and maybe just in the digital scope, you might go a bit smaller. But with my stuff, I just want to give as much value as I can. This isn't a world where I'm, have to keep writing books every month because that's my living. I'm going to deliver these because these are the expeditions that I've done. And what I've done with this second one, actually, that wasn't in the first, is I've put in the failures as well, the big failures. So expeditions that took 1 year to plan, huge money raised, you get there, you hit it, but it just all goes pear-shaped. I've put that in there because I think people need to understand that it's not all, success and glory and the adventure life. There is death, there is failure, there's lots of learning along the way. So there's a few chapters in there that have the failures as well in this next book.
If you're not learning, you're burning. There's
always learning.
So here in the States tomorrow, super stoked, UFC 249, the first competitive, or is the first live sporting event that's coming back since all the lockdowns, right?
Oh wow! Is that crowds or is that no crowd?
it's going to be really weird. No crowds. There's a bunch of stuff online. It's called the Embedded. It's like a vlog series where they're breaking it all down, but they have everybody really separated. They've massively reduced crews, and they have a lot of COVID measures in place. But the reason I was thinking of it is, some of my favorite, I guess, inspirational people from mixed martial arts or say UFC have taken some major losses, and it's the way that they took it and how they turned that into a lesson. Like on this fight card, Justin Gaethje, he had taken a couple of big losses, but he was doing amazing. All these all these big wins hit a hard streak. And some people you'd see, mixed martial arts it's a tough game to be in. People come and go, quite a lot of turnover, but I was worried that after a couple of losses, he was going to just ghost out and be like, you know what, it's not for me. And now he's on a 3-win streak over some really, really competitive people, and he's essentially fighting for an interim champ belt. But it was the losses that he actually attributed some of those losses to changing his mindset, the idea of having to pivot and having to figure out something new for his strategy. So that's
and you'll
great.
find guys like that, very similar to myself. Like that's passion. He does not care about the money, the belt. He cares about the craft, the sport, that thing that he's put his whole life into, and he wants to get better and better and better at it. So when you do fail, you can see where you can learn and evolve and keep moving forward. And the same with these expeditions. It's not about, being the world's worst dinner guest and telling the best stories. It's just about doing the adventures. And I love it. And no matter how much money I've poured in over the years and all the sponsors' money I've poured in over the years, if you fail, no worries. What did we learn? Everyone's safe. No one died. Okay, let's move on and go again. So It's not about, it's just about that passion and what you really value.
That's outstanding. So now that you've got the book, or you had shared something the other day on your on social media, you got the stack of books and you were working on signing them. I thought that was really cool. So now what? You have a bunch of books, you got a bunch of pre-orders. It sounds like the circuit that you were planning on doing around Australia is postponed indefinitely until the COVID measures,
Yes, that was it. We had it was going to be a monster tour. It was going to be probably twice as big as my first book tour. It was going to be a full lap of Australia, so driving, over 6,000. Oh no, what were we going to drive? Almost 10,000 kilometers of driving we were going to do, fully loaded with books, my wife and I, because we're old school. Yeah, we take them all with us.
Yeah.
And we had about 30 events booked in all the way around Australia. So that's just been pushed, but I've pushed it only till the end of August. So I'm not sure what's happening in the States at the moment, but we're starting to open up again.
Yeah, very slowly.
They're saying state borders will be open again by June, July. So if timing goes well, it could be a great time to hit the road. Probably not going to be the most financially beneficial to myself, because I don't think sales going to be up there because everyone's doing it a bit tough. But it'll be a great time just to get out and tell some stories and inspire some people and get everyone moving again. So we'll just probably run it at a cost and just have a great tour and share some stories, mate. But that's hopefully coming up, in August, ideally.
Outstanding. Is there any thoughts of doing like a live stream or like some sort of like a seminar where you open it up to all the people that are interested and you just do like a Q&A after the book has been out for a week or 2 weeks? It gives some people time to read it.
That's not a bad idea. I'm not a very tech savvy guy like yourself, but I do have a lot of mates that are in that sort of tech world and they're sharing their seminars online now. I probably will have to adapt a bit that way, and I think to take as many people as I can on this tour and share the story would be a great idea. So I'll have to get myself skilled up.
I think it would be pretty epic. Whether you did it for just one day or you went and did the whole entire circuit.
Yeah. I'm learning like this Insta story stuff, man. That's how old school I am. So I'm trying to do runs and I'm shooting little videos as I'm running along. Like, it's good fun, and people really appreciate coming on that journey, because some of these places that we run around here is just it's really incredible. So I'll get on to it.
That's outstanding. So I know we're kind of getting to that time, but I wanted to ask, when you kind of got to a point with the book where you were saying, okay, I think this is ready. How did you come to that conclusion? Like, was it just a feeling where you said, you know what, I have said what I wanted to say. It's I've created the framework, and now it's just to kind of do the comb through with your editors and your line editors and that. Like how did you come to that moment?
Yeah, and that's a really good question, mate, because the thing that I've learned is if you try and get it to be absolutely perfect, 100% it's ready to go, you will never, ever put a book out.
Yeah.
So you have to get it to a point where you've told some incredible stories. It is packaged up beautifully. It's a good size. And then you go and get it edited. And even if it's not 100%, you're never going to be truly happy with what you put out. Well, I'm not anyway. Like I'm always a little bit, I could have done that better. I could have changed this paragraph, could have done that. But if you keep doing that, you'll just regurgitate and re-edit that stuff forever and never get it out. So eventually you just have to put it all out there and send it out to market. And whatever you learn, move on to the next one. So once I'd had my word count sort of at the right place and there was enough adventures in there and I've had some good feedback from my proofreaders where I've cut out bits and put in bits. So like, right, we've got a good core base there, off to the editor, and she tore it to shreds. So it comes back with just red pen all over that shit.
Yeah.
And you go through that round a couple of times and then you get a nice book, yeah?
Outstanding. Oh, that's pretty cool. You know, you just made me think something as far as proofreaders. So I'm guessing these are people that you trust dearly to put this thing in their hands and say, please don't leak it. And then also give me like actionable feedback. Don't just be like, I love it. Right. So how is that proofreading process? How do you choose the people that are willing to do it? Or, you know, how do you go about proofreading?
Mate, once again, I had to learn. So initially you're sending it out to friends and family, but the feedback you get back isn't the feedback you need.
Right.
And I had to find a couple of friends, maybe twice removed from sort of my tight inner circle. Say, guys, can you read this? So a sort of guy that I know, a mate of mine, he's another writer. So mate, I need the honest, rip it up, feed it to me feedback, because otherwise you're not gonna get the best product to the market, you know?
Right.
So yes, friends and family are great. That'll give you some initial, you know, typos and structure and this and that. But then you have to have that devil's advocate layer just to hammer you and just put you back in your box and fix up what needs to be fixed. And then you actually go out and pay people. So you actually pay the professionals to go over it line by line, critique it, and give you that, because they don't care about you. They just care about they're taking your money. They're going to deliver what they're promised to deliver. So that's your proofreaders, your line editors, and your overall structural editor as well.
Wow. How many, from start to finish, how many people does it take in your network to get the book to completion once you've kind of done what you can do on your end? Like what is that? Is that like 5 people? Is that 20 people?
I mean, key essential people, you got yourself, you've written it, say a couple of proofreaders, a couple of devil's advocates that are going to tear it up. Then you've got your editor, your line editor, designer. Then you're going to your printer, distributor. So you've got a good 10 people there, essential people that you have to work with to bring like a quality product to market. Something that you really value and something that's going to last the test of time. Now, this is on, you know, the sort of top end of what you want to produce, but there's a cost to that as well. So self-publishing costs in Australia are quite hhigh. So that entire process, say to bring the first 1,000 books to your door to deliver to market, it cost me around $14,000. Wow. If I wanted just to pump that out into this ebook market and just, you know, mass produce and do all that, it'll cost you nothing. But if you want to really produce a quality hardcover or paperback of a legitimate size with color pictures and all the good stuff in there, printed with quality paper and all that responsibly sourced good stuff, it's going to cost. But as we know, that's an investment, you know. So now you've got this product that you can sell for the next 50 years.
Yeah, that's outstanding. There's something about having a paper book in your hand as opposed to, you know, the digital. There's something to it. Maybe it's just because I'm old school, but when I realized that you had,
and no matter what data you hear about the booming audiobook market and the digital market, and that's definitely booming, hardbacks, paperbacks are solid. They'll always be solid forever. Like I still buy so many books paperback before I'll reach out to digital or audiobook versions for sure.
Yeah, that's right. And you had said you're doing a audio book as well. So is it you that's reading it or is it someone else that's reading it?
Well, this is where I've had to sort of downsize a little bit. So the audiobook for the first one, I tried to get it quoted up, but it was just too far outside of my budget. So I've gone the next step back. I've soundproofed a little cupboard over here. I'll jump in there, record the thing, and then I'll get a really good editor to go over it and
Yeah.
do what they do to the audio to produce it for me. So I've had to go a bit budget, but it came out really good for the first one. And I'm just recording the second one now. But
That's
that's a
awesome.
I don't know if you've ever tried to read something out loud without making a mistake.
Yeah.
Impossible.
You start to like breathing really starts to become a thing. You start punctuation, you start realizing how important.
Too slow, making mistakes. Oh man, it's a mission, but it's good.
And then tonal inflection. English, there's a lot of tonal inflection to
And some words
accentuate
I
things.
can't say, like I've written them and I can write them fine. I can understand them. I'll change it. I'll just change it and say it.
Oh man, that's funny. Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. I really appreciate you sharing a bit of your process. Was there anything that you would like to touch base on that we didn't get into, or that you feel is like?
No, I mean, it's a hell of a process, the whole publishing world, and I do get asked a lot about how best to do it, and I explain that process to anyone that wants to know. So if your listeners are doing a book and they need any advice, just reach out, and I'll share what I know.
Outstanding. And for the viewers, listeners, all of Luke's information will be down below in the about section. Make sure to put the link in there if you guys are looking for the book. Definitely check it out. Luke, thank you as always. I really appreciate your time and your insights. It's great to have you on the show.
Absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you so much.
Sure thing. For all the viewers and listeners, stick around. We'll have more of this stuff coming your way shortly. Later.